Chapter 11. So here I am at the Candy Kitchen, in the back booth with the torn red leatherette upholstery, squeezed in a little tighter than usual, on account of Deshawn being added to the picture. And while the others are exercising their jaws, with me throwing in my 2 cents from time to time, I am blissfully unaware of the events that will unfold in the days to follow, that will change the course of my life. I mean, how could I know that? How could anybody? When you're living through them, events are nothing more than stuff that happens. You're not thinking about significance. Significance only comes when you look back at your life. At the moment, what you're thinking is whether you've got enough money in your pocket for hot fudge, or you should just order a single scoop. And when one of your best friends is all hopped up about an election you don't care a fig Newton about, what's agitating your brain is whether you should ask this cute, artistic, and terminally shy girl who kind of smiled at you for one time for a nanosecond, you think, maybe, if she wants to come over to your friend Joe's house on Sunday night to help make posters. And before you can work up the nerve to ask her, you will catch yourself sniffing your armpits, slapping yourself on the forehead like your head and your hands are two of the Three Stooges, and calling yourself an incurable geek. I take no pride in mentioning these things. Would that I could say I am caught up in Addie's passion for social justice and the electoral process. Would that I could tell you, sniff my own armpits? Never. But if I'm going to go to the bother of writing all this stuff down, it may as well be the truth. And the truth is that I am not a particularly high-minded character in my formative years. I hardly ever speak up in class, and I never question what the teacher says. I am just a get-along kind of guy, like my dad. I am certain I will be the face in the yearbook everybody will look at and say, Bobby Goodspeed? I don't remember anybody named Bobby Goodspeed. But of course, it will not turn out this way. The future is a trickster rabbit full of surprises. Only the past is predictable. Somehow, I do work up the nerve on Friday to ask Kelsey if she wants to help out with the posters. This, of course, is after the aforementioned armpit sniffing episode, which fortunately goes unwitnessed. Kelsey says yes, or at least I think she does. She talks so softly I can't be entirely sure, but she does take the piece of paper I give her with Joe's address on it, and gives back one of those blink and you'll miss it smiles of hers. We decide to make the posters at Joe's house because Pam, being a painter and all, has offered to help out and has lots of art supplies she's willing to donate to the cause. From my personal point of view, this is more than copacetic, although I try not to dwell on the prospect of being with Pam and Kelsey in the same room at the same time, for fear of becoming lightheaded and making a large noise when my oxygen-deprived body hits the ground. On Friday, at Awkworth and Ames, my mind is occupied with these thoughts, having nothing better to do, when Mr. Kellerman spooks me by coming up out of nowhere and saying, Mr. Goodspeed, do you know the first thing about selling ties? I own as I do not, although I stake a claim on a pretty decent fashion sense, on account of my long-standing friendship with a certain party by the name of Joe Bunch. Mr. Kellerman does not get this, but he does not question it. All he goes is, let's put that fashion sense to the test, shall we? He is holding a stack of dress shirts, some with stripes, some with checks, and some that are solid colors. I get the sense that he has finally figured out a way to keep himself entertained, and I am it. For the next 20 minutes, he dares me to pick out ties to go with these shirts, and I take up the challenge. To tell you the truth, I'm having a good time of it, except for those occasions when the killer man clicks his tongue and informs me, with a kind of pleasure I can only describe as oily, that I have committed a fashion faux pas, which is French for screw-up. Even when I make what is obviously a cool match, the highest praise he will give is, not bad. Or, for one so young, you have a decent intuitive sense. Do not count on getting an awesome or high five out of Mr. Kellerman. Still, I can tell he is surprised I am so good at this, and is wishing he could come up with a harder test for me, something I would be sure to fail, so he can lord it over me. That is the entertainment part of the program. But even when he is being nice to me, he's nasty about it, and I am beginning to feel fed up, and wishing I was more like Skeezy or Addie so I could tell him what he can do with his ties. Not that, he snaps impatiently at one point. just because I have the nerve to select a tie with a cartoon character on it. He slaps my hand and makes a face like I've drawn nose hairs on the Mona Lisa or something. Ouch, I say, even though the slap hurts my ego more than my wrist. Well, I'm sorry, but ties like that go with nothing. Do you hear me, Mr. Goodspeed? Nothing. I nod, knowing there is no point in trying to convince him of my own personal belief that Daffy Duck goes with everything. Do you hear me, Mr. Kellerman? Everything. Just then, a customer shows. Before we both faint dead away, Mr. K says to me, "Now watch, and perhaps you can learn a thing or two." The woman he approaches is young and unsure of herself. She looks like she took a wrong turn, and is wondering how she ended up in this mausoleum, and if she will ever see her loved ones again. "May I help you?" Mr. Kellerman oozes. He pulls his lips back into a virtual smile. The effect is creepy. I guess," goes the woman. She's maybe twice my age. "I need a gift." "Of course." Without asking who the gift is for, Mr. Kellerman starts showing her ties that make the woman's eyes glaze over. When she holds up a yellow tie with bright red zigzags running through it and asks, "What about this one?" Mr. Kellerman looks like she's just thrust a plate of leeches at him and said, "Care for an appetizer?" Well, he goes when he is called away to the phone. I don't know which of them is more relieved, but I can see the woman is eyeing the exit, and I figure it's now or never, so I step in and say, "That tie definitely makes a statement. If you like it, perhaps I can show you some others along the same lines." 5 minutes later, I am ringing up a sale for 4 ties, and the woman is thanking me for all my help. I cannot wait for Mr. Kellerman to get off the phone so I can brag shamelessly. But when he does get off the phone, I do not brag shamelessly or in any other adverbial manner, because he does not look in my direction or even ask what happened with the customer or notice that Daffy is missing. His face is getting that melting cheese look again, and I'm wondering what gives when he says, "I must," and leaves the words lying there, flat and useless as a couple of pieces of fallen bologna with no dog around to lap them up. He goes off, and I'm left standing there feeling good about the sale I've just made, but with nobody to brag to, while at the same time trying to figure what's up with Mr. K, all to the accompaniment of Mickey and the Accordionaires doing their nursing home rendition of YMCA. I do not believe there is such a group as Mickey and the Accordionaires. Out of sheer boredom, I have come up with names for the musicians I imagine performing each of the Muzak melodies I am forced to listen to every time I work at Awkworth and Ames. I call the ooh-ah chorus that performs Raindrops Keep Falling on My Head the Vowelettes. The killer man does not return. When Junior Furnell shows up to fill in for him, he tells me only that Mr. K was called away on personal business. I do not press Junior Furnell because I do not really like him. Besides, I can tell right away that he needs to feel important, and that divulging too much information to an underling would seriously threaten his status as son of the store manager and heir apparent to the realm. While Junior busies himself refolding clothing that is more in need of dusting than refolding, and tidying up the sales desk, which Mr. Kellerman has already tidied to the point where it could pass military inspection, I alternately replay my coup as tie salesman and imagine what sort of personal business took Mr. K away. I want to think that he's involved in some type of illegal drug operation that is about to be exposed, bringing national attention to Paintbrush Falls. I picture myself watching the TV going, "Yeah, I worked with Mr. Kellerman. No, he never struck me as the criminal type. I was as surprised as anybody to find out he was a drug czar and that he had 14 bodies buried in his backyard. I mean, people at work did call him Killer Man. It's true, but who would have thought?" This is when the Muzak stops and the voice says, "Shoppers, the store will be closing in 15 minutes. "Kind of a slow day," Junior Fennell goes, like there's any other kind at Awkworth and Ames. "Why don't you cut out early? I can close up." I say thanks, knowing that Junior is doing this not out of kindness, but so he can feel like a big shot. But I am truly grateful anyway, because if I stick around much longer, my sanity is in serious danger.